All right, guys. So let's start with our today's topic. Today, we might be switching gears a little bit. Rather, if you look at it, the nature of our topic is going to be kind of a combination of SDLC and healthcare. Okay, and um, what we are going to discuss today is one of the projects which was implemented in the past. And the reason I discuss this project is because this gives you a lot of insight into how projects of this nature are implemented in the industry. Okay, so you all know the EDI transaction, EDI 837, EDI 835, 270, 271, and there are a bunch of EDI transactions. And what happens is, guys, these transactions, EDI transactions, are administered or managed by the federal government, the HIPAA. Okay. When HIPAA publishes any EDI transaction, the expectancy is that everybody or every entity, every healthcare entity in the United States will follow those standards if they want to do business in America. That's why it's consistent. So, just like ICD-9, ICD-9 version of codes was upgraded to ICD-10. Similarly, EDI transactions also go through certain changes. Now, it's been a while since there were any changes proposed by the federal government. The last change, I think they were implemented in 2013 or 14. And now, who knows? Government might come up with some more changes. Okay, they might propose some more changes to the EDI transactions. So whenever a project of that nature comes up, what do I mean by project of that nature? What I mean is that if any EDI transaction goes through any kind of change, how will that process work? First of all, who will communicate the change? The government, HIPAA, CMS. Somebody from the government will communicate the change. How will they communicate the change? They will publish it. They will publish it. The government will publish the companion guide or the implementation guide. Guide for what? The EDI transactions. Government is not going to tell you what they are changing. Okay, first of all. Currently, if you are using any EDI transaction, any particular standard EDI transaction, and government or any entity, any governing body from the federal government proposes a change, they're not going to highlight the change. What they will tell you is that this is the new guide. This is the new implementation guide. And when I say implementation guide, I actually mean, of course, I'm showing you the simplified version, but I'm referring to this online guide, Of course, this is a much simplified version. What the government will publish is an actual companion guide, this thick 2,000-page document. Not necessarily 2,000, but it's a pretty extensive document. So, everybody in the industry is using a standard EDI transaction, and now the government comes out and says, this is a new standard. Use it. Well, use when or where? Whatever situation it pertains to, whether if it's a claim, then it would be 837. If it's an eligibility inquiry, it's going to be EDI 270, corresponding to 71. And this is the new guide. So implement or make these changes in your system. Well, what's the deadline? The deadline is 1st of January 2000, let's say 14. After that, if you want to do business in America, make sure your systems are upgraded to this particular set of transaction or this particular version of transaction. So back in the day, industry used HIPAA 4010 transaction version number. The version number was 4010. Okay, that's what the industry used. And then the federal government came out and said, okay, so the new version of HIPAA transactions or EDIA transactions is 5010. The old version is 4010, new version is 5010. What's different? What's the difference? They're not going to tell you. So who's going to tell you? Well, if you are working for a healthcare entity, and I mean either it could be a hospital or let's say an insurance company or any of the data companies, they deal with EDIA transactions, they will have an office of compliance. Okay, remember this. If you are working for any healthcare entity, they will have a certain department. Now, your company or any client can have a very different name for that department, but I'm just using a generic term. Okay, Office of Compliance. What this team is responsible for doing is they keep an eye on any new regulations published by the government. They get notified that there are new regulations coming up by the federal government. I'll give you an example. We run this consulting firm, Wish Consulting, as you know, and we have a number of consultants working on our payroll, right? And we use ADP to process their payroll. Everybody gets paid through ADP. Now, tax rates change. Sick leave regulations change. There's so many new changes related to taxes and all those things keep happening from time to time. Now, I wouldn't know that if the government has changed the tax rate. I'm a business person. Why would I care? Of course, it affects me, but there's no easy way for me to find out except for the news. So ADP, our payroll processor, has employed a number of experts who keep a very close eye on whatever government is doing. Okay? If the tax rates are going up or going down, they would know. If the sick leave is becoming mandatory in the state of California, they would know. If unemployment tax insurance is going up, they would know. Who's they? The people at ADP. These are compliance people. So similarly, any healthcare organization will have an office of compliance department. These people will keep an eye on whatever government is coming up, whatever change the government is coming up with. Whether it's ICD-9 to ICD-10, HIPAA 4010 to HIPAA 5010. They would know. And once they know, they will notify you. Who's you? The BA. Well, not directly. They will ask the stakeholders. They will say, you know what, the government wants us to upgrade our system. Business stakeholders will bring in a project manager. Project manager is responsible for putting together a team, a core IT team, which will include business analysts, testers, programmers, architects, SMEs. And the project is kicked off. It's initiated. Now, so far we know the government wants us to upgrade from ICD-9 to ICD-10 or HIPAA 4010 to HIPAA 5010. But government didn't tell us what the exact change is, what the nature of the change is. They just gave us a new guide. Your project manager is not looking at you, the BA, that, hey, you know what, take lead. Just take the lead. Start the process. What would you do? You are the BA here. There are no stakeholders per se to gather requirements from. That's my point. Think about it. Government wants you to upgrade your system from one version to another. Okay. Well, everything else in your system is still the same, but you have to make some changes in an EDIA transaction. Think about it. EDIA transaction is going through a change. It's going through an upgrade. Do you think you'll put together some business stakeholders and ask them questions? What are you going to ask? They don't know anything. Then who knows? You're the BA. They expect you to know. How and why? Because they have already given you the published version of the companion guide or the implementation guide. Now you figure out what needs to be changed. So in situations like this, guys, what you will end up doing is the first step. Always remember, the first step is going to be, as a business analyst, performing gap analysis. What do you mean by gap analysis? Gap analysis means you have to analyze how our current system or the current EDA transaction looks like. Document it. Now, how will you document it? Ask your architect, ask your technical team lead, somebody to give you the companion guide for the current version, the current EDA transaction, the current one. Document it. So that means this is how our system is structured as of today. This is how the EDA transaction is programmed in our system as of today. That's current scenario. Okay, great. You involve some technical people and say, you know what, this is how a current scenario looks like, right? Does it make sense to you? Does it so far so good? Okay. What's the next step? And then the next step is to document how the future state would look like. Current state is easy. It should be documented somewhere anyways. Okay. This is how the current state looks like. Great. What about the future state? The government has published it, right? So document it. Current and future. Analyze the gap. What's a gap? What's a gap? You have to find out. That gap itself is going to be the source of your requirements. Does it make sense, guys? Nobody is communicating requirements to you here because it's already published. I don't know if you remember this in our BRD. Just give me a second here. Let me pause my screen. Let me pull up the BRD. Almost 10 classes ago, we did discuss this, and I think, hold on, let me see if this is the document I'm talking about. Yeah, here it is. You remember this document, BRD? This BRD? Revision history, we had table of contents, document overview, references. You know, in the references section, you have to specify what particular documents or particular sources you are referring to. So project of this nature, like ICD 9 to ICD 10 or HIPAA 4010 to 5010, you have to specify if there is any particular document you are using as a reference for your project. So if there is any published document by the government, you have to specify the source here. All right. So this is just from the BRD perspective. I just wanted to show you because I think we did discuss this, but I didn't give you a clear answer, and now it should make sense. So going back to our gap analysis, here it is. As a business analyst, you are responsible for documenting whatever the current situation looks like and then documenting what the future state would look like. Okay, so this is one of the sources I have picked up from the internet. This is Ingenix. Now it's a subsidiary of United Health Group, and this is what they did for the HIPAA 4010 to 5010 project. So what this business analyst has done, this is the loop. He specified the loop. I mean, if he wants to. This is the segment name, IS segment, GS segment, ST, BHT, you see, NM1 segment, all of those segments, all the segments. Okay. Element name, what's the name of that segment? Okay. and what are the valid values under the current system. Under the current version, what are the valid values and description. You remember in our EDI transactions, there are lots of qualifiers, like NM101 is hard coded to IL, NM103 is the organization name, and there are lots of qualifiers like this. Okay, it's hard coded to IL, it's hard coded to whatever. So all the valid values documented here. It should not be that hard, you know. All this stuff should be available somewhere. Your systems architect or one of the EDI SMEs should definitely have this. You're just documenting that this is how our current system by each and every segment is structured in our system. Okay, this is the 4010, valid values, current values. Now, based on the government's publication, you document the future state of these segments. Some of the segments are being added, some of the segments are being discontinued. Many segments have a change in qualifiers. For example, this ISA 12 used to have this value 00401. Now it is being replaced by 00501. Whatever is the gap between current state and the future state, you document it here under the notes. Like this, ST03, Implementation Convention Reference. What is this? From a BA perspective, I don't know. Okay, but this is a new segment. In 4010, it just didn't exist. In 5010, this is the valid value. So you are documenting this in your notes, that new element in 5010, code indicating the version, release, sub-release, or whatever it means. I did not come up with any of this. I'm just documenting what the government wants us to implement for each segment. In 4010 version, all these were possible values of the qualifiers. You know, NM1 can have hard-coded values. This NM108 can have all these values as of today. In future 5010 version, only these two values are allowed. So you highlight the values which are being deleted. So you're just documenting the codes are being deleted. Currently, all these segments are either required or situational, but in future they are no longer being used. They're discontinued. So just look at the notes. Usage changed from situational to not used. You're identifying the gap. You know, each and every gap, whatever you find, is the nature or the source of your requirements. Not the nature, the source of your requirements. Look at that. NM103. Now this is a valid change. Last name or organization name. Last name or organization name. Back in the day, total 35 characters were allowed for the last name. Now 60 characters are allowed for the last name. For the first name, we used to have 25 characters, and now we have 35 characters. So, you know, patient first name, last name, or subscriber first name, last name, organization first name, last name, they used to have certain limitations in terms of number of characters it could have. And now that limit has been increased. How would I find out that the limit has been increased? I'm just comparing the current state and the future state. Very recently, I would say, you know, hasn't been more than 1 year, if I remember this correctly, or maybe a little bit over 1 year, when Netflix started allowing its subscribers to download movies on their iPads. It's fairly a new feature, I would say. It's not super new, but it's fairly new. Back in the day, you could not download any movies. You needed to have live internet access to access any of their movies or TV shows or whatever. You can actively stream any video content, but you cannot download it. But now you can. So current state is you cannot download any stuff, and future state is you will be able to download some stuff as long as you are a paid subscriber. This is the gap analysis. So last name used to have a limit of 35 characters, and now it has a limit of 60 characters. It's a change. This change needs to be implemented. All these changes will go through an SDLC. All of these changes. The segment NM103 shall have an increased limit of 65 characters from the current limit of 35 characters. Just write the requirement. This is the business requirement. The segment NM108 shall have only 46 as an valid qualifier. The updated version of 5010 version of EDI 837 shall not allow NM108 to use FI and XX qualifiers. These are your requirements. But before you get to requirements, business requirements or technical requirements, you have to understand the gap analysis. This is a very, very important, extremely important step conducted by a business analyst. Don't think that a programmer or anyone else will do it. You will have to do it. Definitely. Back in the day, they used to allow 3 different indicators for the gender: female, male, or unknown. And now they allow only 2. So these are the changes. Everything is being highlighted. If there is no change, sure, nothing is, you won't see anything on the notes. Make sense, guys? Are you with me so far? So far, so good. Can we move on to the requirements? How to write requirements for this?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, since we are very comfortable with EDI 837, let's take this as an example, okay? And as you can see here, Karen Smith, this Cole Smith is a patient, Karen Smith is the subscriber, and this family was in the hospital for some reason, and so on. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of examples from the changes EDI 837 went through. Okay, besides the regular change of increasing the first and last name limits and change in postal codes and all that stuff. But let's discuss some real technical changes which it actually went through. Okay, now one of the changes government wanted to implement in EDI 837, the claims was, government said, anesthesia. Anesthesia is rendered to patients before conducting a major surgery, just to numb their part of the body or whatever. So anesthesia was usually given to patients, and it was measured in units. Okay, units of anesthesia. How many units of anesthesia was given? And government made a change for whatever reason. I mean, it's more of a clinical thing to discuss, but now the government wants anesthesia to be discussed, to be measured in minutes, not units, but minutes. Now, how would you know that this is units versus minutes? By the change of indicator. What indicator? Like this. You remember this is UN for units. Whatever you see highlighted in yellow are the ICD codes for treatments. Okay, this is an 837 file. The bill, the claim, being sent from the hospital to the insurance company. So J2941, KL7645, these are two ICD codes for some treatments. It can be chemotherapy, it can be some injection, it can be even a flu shot. Okay, people like you and me would never know unless we write a SQL query, which should be very simple. Anyway, so these are some treatments. So government wants that, EDR transactions should have a logic that whenever anesthesia is being billed, it is being billed in minutes. So change the indicator. So this indicator, this qualifier, MJ means minutes, UN means units. You don't have to remember this. I mean, the guide will tell you everything. As long as this is the ICD code. If this ICD code, KL7645, this is the ICD code for anesthesia. If this is the ICD code for anesthesia and this code is being used in the claim, this indicator should always be MJ. And if that is true, then take this number. That means 10 minutes of anesthesia was given. If this is UN, earlier it was UN. That is no longer allowed. 10 units of anesthesia is no longer allowed. It has to be 10 minutes. So indicator, it has been updated by the government. Now, you the BA will have to write a requirement in such a fashion that programmers understand, or they build a logic in the system, and your company or your system is in compliance with the new government regulation. So let's look at the business requirement first. The business requirement. So what we are going to discuss in today's class is, guys, how to write business requirements and how to convert those business requirements into technical requirements. Business into technical. Okay, that's what we are going to discuss. So the business requirement says the incoming EDI 837 file version 5010 shall report anesthesia claim in minutes. This is the business requirement. This is the business need. Your team is obligated to implement this business requirement to be in compliance with the government. The incoming EDI 837 file version 5010 shall report anesthesia claims in minutes. From a business perspective, that's all you are trying to communicate. You are the BA, right? You have gone through the new published guide, and guide says the future EDI transactions, 837 transactions shall report all anesthesia in minutes by updating this indicator. Okay. So this is how you write business requirement, as simple as that. Now, as a business analyst, since you are a systems person, you are also obligated to document the technical requirement. How will you do it? And why are we documenting technical requirements anyways, to begin with? Because technical requirements are literally the step-by-step instructions which a programmer will follow to write his code. So I, as a business analyst, I am responsible for translating my, first of all, documenting my business requirements, getting it approved, and translating my business requirements into technical requirements. So The business requirement is any incoming EDI 837 file, version 5010 of course, the new one, shall report anesthesia claims in minutes. How to write this technically? In technical requirements, I would write for SV101:2. What does that mean? This is SV101. Sorry. This is SV101. All of it. :2 means second part. Whatever you see highlighted in yellow, that is the second part. For SV101, second part equals to KL7645. KL7645. What is KL7645? The ICD code for anesthesia. How did I find this out? I wrote a SQL query. Okay. The program EDI 837 underscore CLM underscore cust dot sh. What is this? This is the name of a software which processes your EDI transactions. Let me repeat. This is a software which processes your EDI transactions. Shall check if SV103 is MJ. So what you're telling the programmer, write a code in such a manner, SV101 second part, if this is KL7645, the program which processes the EDI transaction, of course you as a BA won't know this, you have to ask what's the name of the program. This is the name of the program. Shall check if SV103 is MJ. So you're telling the programmer to write a code that if this value is KL7645, check whether SV103 is MJ. If condition is true, program will retrieve data from SV104 and process as minutes for claim adjudication. Guys, read this line at least twice and think about it. What I'm telling the programmer is, if SV101 second part is KL7645, that means this is anesthesia. Check what is the value in SV103. Is it MJ? Yes. If it is MJ, if condition is true, take whatever the value is in SV104 and process as minutes for claim adjudication. If this condition is false, if this is not MJ, if this is UN or something else, the claim denial message will be displayed. Anesthesia claims can only be reported in minutes. So I am the BA. I found out that there is a change being introduced in the EDI transactions. The change is government no longer wants anesthesia to be reported in units. It has to be reported in minutes. Okay. So the business requirement is anesthesia will be reported in minutes. As simple as that. From technical perspective, I am telling the programmer that update your program. There is a program, there is a software which processes EDI 837. What does it do? I'll discuss in detail, I think tomorrow's class. That program, what does it do? If this value, if this ICD is for KL7645, check what's the indicator in SV103. If it is MJ, take the value from SV104 and process the claim as minutes. Everything is good. If the condition is not true, deny the claim. Does it make sense, guys? Are you with me so far? Does this technical requirement make sense to you? What do you think?
Yeah.
Do you agree with the verbiage, or would you write it any differently? You can. You don't have to stick with this verbiage. But do you agree with the language, the verbiage, or what do you think? I take your silence as an agreement. Okay. This is one business requirement, one change you found based on your gap analysis. Okay. Let's say there's another change, which is a real change. You see this EDI transactions, all of these. Wherever you see a zip code, like this is a zip code, PO Box 12345, Campbell, California. This is a zip code. Initially, EDI transactions only contain 5-digit zip codes, but in reality, as you know, all zip codes are 9-digit zip codes. So government made it mandatory whenever there's a zip code, make it 9 digits. Make it 9 digits. Use all the 9 digits or the claim will be denied. Make this mandatory. Sure. The incoming EDI 837 file, version 5010, shall contain 9-digit zip codes for all respective addresses. Based on your gap analysis, do they have any zip code here? Because this is a real change I'm talking about. Wait, this is 276, right? Yeah, I don't think they'll have a zip code. But anyways, you understand what I'm talking about. Oh, sorry. There is that. Yeah. The incoming EDI 837 file, version 5010, shall contain 9-digit zip codes for all respective addresses. Sure. How would you write this technically? The program EDI 837 underscore CLM underscore cus.sh. I just made this up, by the way. You would never know the name of the program. You have to ask. Ask from whom? The developers or some technical person. Maybe the architect. Shall check for 9 numeric digits for all respective N403 segments. The program 837, whatever the program is, shall check for 9 numeric digits for all respective N403 segments. Where are these zip codes located? This is N403, right? N401, 402, 403. 401, 402, 403. All N403 segments should contain 9-digit zip codes. For incomplete zip codes, the program will reject the claim with the error message. Zip code should contain 9 numeric characters or 9 numeric digits, whatever you want to call it. This is the technical requirement. You are actually telling the developer on how to exactly write the logic for the program. Look, programmer's job is to write the code. For whatever you tell him, he will do it. Of course he will do it. Great. But you have to tell him everything. You have to tell him the logic. You have to tell him everything. So this is how you write business and technical requirements. We are talking about functionality here. These are called functional requirements because they are related to a functionality, a feature, a functionality. You want to discuss another example? Let's do another example. Let's write business requirement for where is that? Sorry. No, not this. Indicators are simple. Yeah, go ahead.
I got a question. So, like, from interview perspective, if we say like functional requirements and technical requirements, is that's okay to interchange those terms, or would they kind of be looking for us to you separate those terms essentially? Or?
Well, functional requirements is a very broad term. Okay, your functional requirements talk about the functionality of whatever requirement you are working on, right? It can be from a business perspective or from technical perspective. Okay, some people or many people in the industry use functional requirements and technical requirements interchangeably. Okay,
Okay.
I'm just telling you the textbook version. You know what I mean?
Sure. Sure. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you can, if you want to, you definitely can use these terms interchangeably. Now, let's say this last name, NM103. NM103, the limit has been increased from 35 characters to 60 characters. So how would you write the business requirements, NM103? The NM, sorry, no, the business requirement is the last, or sorry, the patient last name shall have an enhanced limit of, is it 60 characters? I think it's 60. This is the business requirement. Okay, what's the technical, how will you write the technical requirement for this? And I don't think it's complete. The EDI 837 version 5010. In EDI 837, do you agree with the verbiage? You can change the language if you want. That's fine. That's how you write a business requirement. What about technical? The program, let's copy and paste. What do you think? What do you think, guys? You should be helping me out with the verbiage. So the business requirement is in EDI 837 version 5010, the patient last name shall have an enhanced limit of 60 characters. The program EDI 837, whatever the program name is, shall allow NM103 segments to contain up to 60 characters. For NM103 exceeding 60 character limit, display the error message upon claim rejection. Last name character limit not to exceed 60. What do you think, guys? Make sense? So far so good?
Yeah.
This is how you write business requirements and technical requirements. It's your job first to understand the objective from business perspective. From a layman perspective, what change are we making? Anybody can understand this change from business perspective, right? But now you are the BA, you are the technical BA. You know how an EDA transaction is structured. You can go behind the scenes and actually write step-by-step instructions for the developer how to implement this change in the system. This is exactly what you're doing. So these are business and technical requirements for a project like this. Now, before I move on to the strategy for testing these kind of changes, let me just show you how non-functional requirements are written. Now, if you remember from our conversation, I don't want to say a few weeks ago, but a few days ago, of course, every project will have business and technical requirements. Okay, business requirements tell you what needs to be developed. What technical requirements will tell you how it will be developed. Okay, here we are from the business perspective. We are telling that claims, anesthesia claims should be in minutes. But how? How will you check for it? How will you implement it? This is technical. Besides these functional requirements, you will also be documenting some non-functional requirements. Non-functional. Okay? These requirements have nothing to do with functionality. These are the requirements related to the security, the performance, the robustness of the system, the infrastructure of the system, the security of the system, encryption, decryption, all that stuff. Government wants you to, just make changes in your EDA transaction. Great. How this transaction will be shared with one entity from one entity to another entity has to be done through a secure channel, but it has nothing to do with functionality. You could be sending this transaction through an email or a secure channel. Secure is better because you don't want to risk it. It's a lot of secure data. So let's establish a secure channel. The SFTP or FTP or MFT, the terms I discussed a few classes ago. If it's a 56-bit encryption or 256, all that stuff, the technical stuff, infrastructure related stuff. You don't have to come up with those requirements. First of all, you are just documenting it. You're just a note taker. You know why you are documenting this on the behalf of other technical people or networks people or other architects? Because you are the documentation person. You are the go-to person for any kind of documentation. That's why they will just iterate all those requirements in the meetings and you will just document them. So, some non-functional requirements. The claim processing system will process data at 2000 kbps. As a BA, I don't know what that means. Well, I mean, and I can understand what it's saying, but if it's 2000 or 20,000, I wouldn't know how actual measurement was actually conducted. What is the math behind this? I don't know, but I'm just documenting it. You know why? Because this BRD is my document. All of this stuff will eventually go to the BRD or TRD. And who owns that document? This BRD. Who owns this? Me. Who's me? The BA. Claim processing will start claim processing job at 8 p.m. PST. Now, this could start at midnight or 2 in the morning. I couldn't care less, but, well, guess what? Somebody has to document all this. And why am I being asked to document all this? Because I am the documentation person. EDA 37 will be transmitted to the pair through an 64-bit encrypted secure network. You want to go into further details? It is called SSH and PGP encryption. Don't ask me what it is because even I wouldn't know. One of them is related to encrypting the actual file, and one of them is actually encrypting the channel, the path. All the EDI 837 transactions for the entire business day are put together in a batch, and they are sent at, or they are processed at 8 p.m. Who decides the timing? I don't. Systems architect, probably. Some infrastructure people. A batch EDI 837 file should contain up to 10,000 claims at a time. Up to 10,000 claims. Whatever is the limit. Whatever has been communicated to you, you document it. These are non-functional requirements. They have nothing to do with functionality. It could be these transmissions could be carrying an 837 file or an iTune. They are just related to the infrastructure, the performance, the security. From an interview perspective, remember these three factors: infrastructure, performance, and security. When I say performance, it includes processing speed and transmission speed and all that stuff. There are more, but just remember these three: infrastructure, performance, and security of the system pertain to the non-functional requirements. And this is how I write non-functional requirements. Yeah, go ahead.
Could you elaborate number 3, like how it actually works? Because I always wonder when they say like secure network, how does it actually, how does the claim come in, and how do you access it? And as a business analyst, do we do that?
No, you first of all, no, you don't. Okay, and how is this established? No, this is done by network engineers. If you really want to know, what they do is they set up a web portal. Okay, like a web portal, an account where the systems administrator will log in and establish a path from source to destination, and encryption keys are used to initiate the file generation is initiated, and the file is dropped from at the source, and source will transmit it to the destination. It will encrypt it and decrypt it. It's unless you are really a technical person, let's not get there. Okay, but it's an online portal. Okay.
Okay. And as a business analyst, what do we do?
No, I'm sorry, but let me expand my answer. I would strongly urge you to not to bring this up during an interview, because if you do, they would think that you've actually worked on it, and they will start grilling you on this topic, and then there you go. Okay. So yeah, as a business analyst, no, you don't get involved. What you do is, when you are working for a healthcare firm and you're working with an external vendor, you're working with their BA, both of your teams will bring their respective network engineers. You just initiate the conversation or facilitate the conversation. Your network engineers and their network engineers, they'll talk, they'll set up an online portal, they'll talk about the exchange of encryption and decryption keys, and set up an online portal. You don't have to do anything. Make sense?
Okay. But do we need to at least access it? Like, let's say if somebody sends you a file encrypted.
No. EDI file doesn't come to the BA. It comes to the claims team, the infrastructure team. If anything goes wrong, they will send you the file that, hey, you know what, this file is just not working. Can you look at it? Or they
Okay. So there's somebody in between. You don't need to open it.
Well, it's not that it's somebody in between. It's just that people who maintain the infrastructure, the data exchange, they send and receive files. But if the file, there are hundreds of files exchanged every day, and every file is different. Okay. Depending on the nature of the file, people get involved. For EDI transactions, eligibility, claims, and all that stuff, somebody needs to do the research. They'll pull in the BA, and you will get involved in that case.
Okay. What about if there is a data migration then like to make sure that if the data is migrated properly, do you need to do that?
Well, what do you mean by data migration? Data migration from one business, one organization to another?
Yes.
That is data exchange, what we just discussed in the last class.
Right. But at that time, do you need to do this like in the secure system?
Everything is exchanged through a secure system.
Okay.
Everything is, look, when you are dealing with patient data, you cannot just send an email. It has
Right.
to be done through a secure channel. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all you need to know. Any data
Oh,
exchange has to be done through a secure channel, because this is healthcare data. They have social securities, patient health details, all that information. You know, what
right.
medications they are on what things are allergic to. This information has to be kept private. They cannot just send it through an email.
Right. Okay. So even for the data exchange, as a VA, we don't need to know about this secure, how to open this secure file, right?
Well, I think you're getting into a conversation which you shouldn't. But
Okay.
look, here's the thing. When somebody sends a file and somebody receives a file, it's encrypt. They exchange keys, network keys, okay, to encrypt it and decrypt it. It's embedded in the
Mm-hmm.
system. Okay, so if I send you a file, it will be encrypted, and when you receive it and you open it, it will be automatically decrypted, because both of our network systems have exchanged network keys. Do you have a technical background? Are you a software engineer?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so does it make sense to you, or I don't know? Don't worry about it. As a BA, don't worry about it. We are getting into a conversation which is a little technical, and I don't want to confuse others. Okay?
Okay, sure. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, this is the reason I wanted to discuss this, because so that you can bring this up in an interview, that I, as a BA, do realize or do know that um, all the data is exchanged through a secure network, and that's all you need to know. Don't worry about, as a BA, will you be involved? No, definitely not. These are certified Cisco engineers, network engineers, okay, who established this secure channel, web portal based. All right, guys. So what do you think? Does it make sense so far?
Yeah, so what we looked at so far is it essentially kind of like the requirements traceability matrix we were looking at in the earlier classes?
Yes, yes, of course. But we are just expanding on that topic pertaining to healthcare.
Okay, okay.
You know what
It's
I mean?
kind of like when we looked at it originally, I was noticing we weren't really going to the technical functions. So for sometimes a gap analysis, like will we go through more technical functions when we write the RTM?
Well, no. So gap analysis is for projects when you are making a change to a system. Okay, system already exists. System exists and it has certain features and functionalities.
Right.
But in future, there will be a lot more features and functionalities, and there will be lots of modifications to the current system. Okay, to the existing functionalities. In that particular case, you will have to perform gap analysis first before you start documenting requirements. So gap analysis comes first, and then comes the RTM and all those. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just looking like, because I mean, basically when we first did RTM, like we weren't really going to the technical requirements. That's what I was saying. Like it's kind of a little bit of a change. But in general, RTMs, like, will we go more technical when the system kind of doesn't exist, essentially, or?
Well, initially you have to write business requirements in an RTM and get it approved. And if everybody agrees with your requirements from business perspective, only then you proceed and start writing the technical requirements. So if you want to follow the sequence, gap analysis number one, and then business requirements in an RTM is number two. Then you create the BRD, and then you take the business requirements from the RTM and translate them into technical requirements in a TRD, and then get them approved. So that is a sequence, if that's what your question is.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Before I end today's class, there's just one more thing. The testing strategy I wanted to discuss for such scenarios. Let's say, so for example, this requirement, this anesthesia scale 7645, SV103 should be MJ. Okay, and if it is MJ, whatever number is in SV104, take it as minutes and process the claim. So what you do as a BA, hold on, let me open one more document. We have discussed this before, and I think it will definitely make sense to you. Test cases. Okay, here we are. You remember this test case document? This test cases and test scripts and everything. So one of the columns we discussed test data. Okay, what data are we using for testing? What changes? What test data we are using, right? So when you are testing, excuse me, when you are testing this EDI file for anesthesia changes, KL7645, in the first file, you take the EDI transaction just like this and change it to UN. Now drop this test file in the test server. Does the claim go through? Yes or no? No. Why? Because it's UN. It's a wrong indicator. Now let's do MJ. Let's process this claim. Does it work? Yes, it does work, because MJ is the only indicator allowed for anesthesia claims. KL7645 is anesthesia, and this should be MJ. Great. Now you know what? I've tested both the possibilities, UN and MJ. Now I'm going to test something stupid. Let's ABC. What happens now? It does not work, and it should not work. If it still does work, or the claim goes through, that means something is wrong. There's a bug in the system. There's a defect. Okay, so you have to test these kind of possibilities. Now, I'm not saying that use every possible indicator or alphabet. No, I mean, testing something weird once is good enough. But all these possibilities, in first case, you did UN. In second case, you did MJ. Third case, you did something weird, like ABC or XYZ. Document all of them in here in the test data. Okay. SV101 second part is KL7645, and SV103 is UN. SV104 is MJ. SV103 is ABC. Something like that. All the possibilities for the test data, document them in your respective test cases. Make sense, guys? So this is where you document your test data. Now, second requirement. Where is it? Sorry, this one. 9-digit zip codes, right? 9-digit zip codes is a new thing. It's a mandatory. Okay, where's the zip code? Give me one example. This one. 151070986. In the first possibility, in the first test case, I'll use only 5. Let's test this. Does it work? No. Now let's test this. Does it work? Yes, it does. In third possibility, what I'll do is, I'll do more than 9. Does it work? It should not work. So these are the different test possibilities, different test cases. Okay. And whatever you are using here in your EDI file, you are manipulating the data. Remember this. You have a test EDI file, which is you will find all over the place. When you are the BA, you will have access to all these test files all over the place. Okay, so don't ask, where will I get this file? Well, you are the BA, and EDI is your day-to-day working with EDI is going to be a day-to-day activity. So lots of EDI test files. You are manually manipulating the data. Whatever manipulations or whatever test data you are using for your test case, always document them here in your test data. Always. Okay. And so let's do 9 characters. Let's do 5. Let's do more than 9. This is how you would test it. Okay. And just like this is last name Smith, it has a limit of 60 characters now. I mean, only God knows who has a last name more than 60 characters. But the initial limit was 35. Okay, what I'll do is, I'll do 35. Does it work? It does work. Let's do 36. Does it work? Yes, it does, because the limit is 60. Now I'll do up to 60. It works? It works. I'll do 61. It should not work. So I'm testing all the limits, or all the possibilities. 35 characters was the old limit. Does it work? Of course. More than 35? Of course. 60? Of course. More than 60? No. I am making sure the programmer has written a very perfect code. He has written code to cover all these possibilities. There are no cracks. There are no loops, or any holes in the system. If there are, that's a bug. That's a defect. Does it make sense, guys? All right. Any questions, thoughts, comments? What I'll do is I'll stop the recording, but please unmute yourself to ask any questions, anything you want to add, or what do you think?